Sveiki. Hello, I will continue in English. And while my presentation is being set up, I was introduced, so thank you. And the goal of mine today is more to share what kind of challenges do we face in organization while we work with people development. And I believe that we can share so that you understand also where the people are coming in terms of work and employment. And I'm not sure whether you see the same trend, but if I think about the adult people development, then everybody really likes the recipes, right? And sometimes when I go to talk somewhere, they say, so what is the recipe? So what are you suggesting to do? And then while thinking about it, I was just, contemplating about the topic. And then I thought, well, actually, I do have a recipe for you, or recipe I want to share. So if I think about the main thing with what organizations are dealing today, or what we think are the future competence development, so my recipe would be that actually you should pour a lot of social competencies, then add some 5 spoons or maybe even more of personal leadership, and stir it with constant social learning. I think this is what is recipe today while we think about the competence development. And I will try to elaborate a bit now. Why do I think so? So if we think about the challenges that organizations are facing today, so perhaps it's nothing really new, and then some of the introductions were already made while we talked about also the uncertainty in the political environment. So these are very, very similar. So contemporary organizations basically live in extreme speed. They are required for very, very big flexibility. They are constantly looking for some ways to be more effective. They are constantly looking for the ways how to find synergies. And when I think about synergies, it's also about how to get the best synergies out of the competencies they have. Then, of course, digitalization, and then, I see you take pictures and then you use your mobiles, but it's also that it really shifts a lot, business models that companies run. So they have to seek for the new ways of working. And then, of course, if we seek for the new ways of working, then we can't really deal without innovation and just, finding the new ways how we create things. So I believe this is the core, challenges that perhaps everybody is dealing with. And then, to illustrate a bit on this speed is that we think in Sweedbank that we are fast, but if you look at the world, so we are not that fast. So basically, if we think about implementation of some new things, or IT novelties, then we implement changes every month. But as you see, worldwide, there are lots of companies who are much faster even. And then, of course, the other thing that you can observe, which is, I think, a shift, is this is a picture of my mobile. And then you can see that I still, can install some new updates. And it's not irritating, right? I mean, you know that some update is coming and you're happy, and then you see, oh, they found a bug and they fixed it, and that's nice, and then I will install it, and then I will have a better product. So it's sort of an environment that everything is being created, everything is being launched, and everything is very lively. So this is how the business goes today. And what does it causes for organization? What does it mean for the competences? Then I think if we think about this environment, then basically we can talk about 4 blocks that are influenced a lot how organizations live. So one thing is that structures and the way how the work is being organized is changing a lot. Then, of course, how the teams are set up and what does it actually require from the teams also changes. The roles change a lot, and of course everything requires for new leadership. So these are the things. I will just skip the leadership today, but I believe you will have just plenty of time to discuss it afterwards. So, organizing the work. What's happening? I believe that the main changes is that organizations are becoming much more network-based rather than hierarchy-based. They are becoming much more flat. the power is much more decentralized, so we don't have anymore like, the big guys who are making all the decisions and they have all the powers. So basically it's about decentralization of the power. And we don't have anymore like, these strict geographical borders, because it's not a new thing that, I work here and my boss is somewhere in Sweden, or I have a colleague in Estonia, and that is fine. This is how we work and we used to. And then, it's also about the constant change of the structure. So the structure is very, very lively. So if we think that, we make a change and we live with that for a year or two, then it's not reality anymore. The structure's just really changing and changing again and again. And what does it mean for the people, or what kind of insights I would like to suggest to you is that basically people have to learn how to manage complexity. And it's not an easy task. Like, it's not sometimes like, very clear what to do, how to do, with whom I should collaborate, how I should find the resources. So it's about really managing. And then what I started from the social network, then I think that it's also a very important thing that people need to start networking a lot. So actually being able to to network, to create relationship, to find with whom you have to collaborate is quite an important competence. And then we see that sometimes when young people are coming, they don't really even want to. And then it's so scary to take up the phone and to find someone and to call someone. It's really scary. So I think especially for our culture, this networking thing and social thing is very important to develop. And then all the being broad-minded, being able to look for information, being able to judge critically information, and then of course flexibility, ability to adapt, and then really openness to diversity. I think at least in Lithuania we are a very homogeneous society. So when we see otherness, sometimes we are really a bit of cautious, a little bit skeptical. We like to draw these differences, and then I remember really the times when we were thought that Estonians are so different, and this is such an intercultural environment. And then you live further and you understand that it's really not. So this is about organization. And then the teams, so maybe main things is that, that they are also very complex in a sense that, they are collected from the very different competencies. Usually they are changing also a lot. There are times when people are gathered for a very short period, so they have to do the job and then they go to another teams. So it's again about very good social competence, about very good ability to play with roles. Because I think you've all seen some cases where I don't know who, maybe some manager, if he or she is a manager and they go to different environments and they are still the managers, they sometimes look quite weird. I mean, you should be able to understand your role, in what environment you are just carrying it. So basically to play with the role or to change the role is something what is really important. And of course this, collaboration and being able to pursue your dream or pursue your passion is also very important, so that you can follow what you want to do and then you can deliver actually on what is needed and what you are required by organization. And the role. I've mentioned several, and this is really true, that it's constantly changing. I think organizations now don't have the roles which are strictly cut into the stone. So basically you have to work also in describing it, in looking for resources, in finding the way how to get resources, and that actually makes a lot of effort for people, because they need to be proactive, they need to just to describe their goal, they need to describe their task. So it's something about really personal leadership, that I know what I'm supposed to do, I know that I need to find the resources, I know that I need to find the network, how to deliver on the goal. So that seems to be easy thing, but actually it's quite a difficult thing. And when we think about the network, then basically you can understand that the conflict is inside of it, right? If we need to do a lot of negotiation on resources, or a lot of negotiation on the priorities, then of course you would have, some colleagues that have another goals or another passions. So when I say conflict, it's nothing really very negative, but it's also that people need to learn actually how to negotiate, how to just, agree on different things, and how to deliver on the common goal with quite different interests, or sometimes even with different priorities. And having this in mind, I think reflection is also very crucial, because when it's it's not a mess everywhere, but I think when it's complexity, network, so many goals, I have to deal with myself, I have to deal with others, then basically reflection is something that should go on constantly, and people have to learn to do it. And our observation is that this is something what is difficult, at least for Lithuanians, that, we run fast and we are quite good in fighting, but when we have just, to sit back and think, so what is happening and what can I do, it's just a bit more difficult. But I think we are learning also. So this is about some smaller recipes, or some smaller spoons, or maybe this is what I wanted to share with you, what are our learnings in Sweedbank when we started thinking about people development a bit anew. And what I think is working for us now, so maybe you will find something useful also, is that we said at one point, and that was I think 3 or 4 years ago, we said that we don't really want to work with the heavy, massive programs anymore. Instead, we want to create lots of development spaces where different people can find their way how to learn, how to engage, and they just, can also find, what is the passion for them. So we just thought that, we will develop lots of spaces, and then different people will join them or will connect them. Then we also said that, that we will try to work so that we initiate something quickly, we tested it, we develop it further, and then if we see that it doesn't work, we just kill it. And if we see that, we need to shape it, then we shape it. So it's not that, we plan for a year or two, and then, we develop and drag, but we rather try to create a very lively system. And then in ecology, that, if something is not needed in the nature, it just disappears. So basically, this is the principle that we try to build. Then you can be angry or not, but gamification is something that flies now. People really like to play games, and they like all these just things to be quick, crispy, nice, short, attention attracting. So this is the thing you can use, and then you can make really fun out of learning. So I think that the recipe also could be just really stop instructions, stop these instruction cultures, and then try to engage people, try to invite them, to create together, actually, to bring the ideas, and then it really works. And maybe the last one is this mixing of areas and experiences, because when I was talking about the roles, I maybe mentioned that actually the roles are growing to some complex things. So if we think about the team, so the team might look now that you have an IT person, marketing person, sales person, someone test analyst or whomever. So basically, if you mix different competencies and then they learn from each other, then you can get a brilliant thing, which is actually you can't really get from the school. But of course, I think that, it's also the recipe that if we just try to play with different areas or different competencies in showing how they can connect, people are getting really very strong and they can be very, very innovative. So, that was in short. Recipe stays the same. But there is also one thing I wanted to say about the chef who is cooking this soup or dish. I think it's also true that the chef should be ready to unlearn. And that's not easy. I remember myself, when we were trying to just, to work on these different approaches, and I thought, but this is so scary. You start some initiative and you don't really know how you will end. this is scary because you have to forecast, you have to calculate return on investment. And then unless you dare to make this move and then you dare to say that, okay, I will try and then I will learn anew, like for us, it didn't work. So I wish you all to learn, but also unlearn. And then I'm glad if you can take something from here, and I wish you to create your own recipes, really. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Milda. Ačiū, poniai Mildai. Any questions from the audience? Ar turime klausimų? Galbūt taip, štai čia klausimas, mes tada tai paprašysiu perduoti mikrofoną, kad visi girdėtume ir... O štai jau čia atkeliauja mikrofonas, gal tada trumpai prisistatykit, maybe you introduce yourself and a question.
Hi, Donatas Smailys, Kaunas University of Technology. My question was, I was reading, you mentioned instruction culture. So would you like to give us an example of what it was in Sweedbank before and what it is now?
Yeah. So before is that we still have some elements, I have to admit. But I think we are mad about writing the instructions. We're definitely mad. And I think, it's a bit of maybe the business we are in, so that we have to manage risk very well, but we're really very good in writing the instructions. So one thing is that, we started saying that you have to start, writing the principles, so that people understand the area they work in, but rather not taking everything and then, writing what is allowed and what is not. This is one thing. And then I think it's also how to build up the development, because you can just, make the room of 35 people, and then you can just, tell and tell and tell, and that's it. Or you can just, switch to blended learning where you play. So that, you give some homework, you give some reading, you give some group work, then you can just, give some projects so that they interact. So I would say that it's more about, playing with the different methods instead of, telling everything. But telling it's easy because you just, you take 2 hours, you tell and they go.
Dar kas nors, any more questions? Okay. Yes, pana Galūnai. Čia, o iš abiejų pusių mikrofonus tik neša Seimo nariams.
Yeah, thank you for the exciting presentation. And my question would be, what part in these competences are played by the professional skills, technical skills? Because you mainly mentioned social competences, empathy, learning, gaming, or all these more or less general competences. So what percentage is dedicated for technical skills improvement for your strictly professional advancement, so to speak?
That's a very good question, yeah, because I think you might get this impression that we just sing and play there, right? But it's not like that. So I think professional skills is the hygiene. I mean, you can't really do the job if you can't do something. And of course, we have this, responsibility in face of our clients, in face of society. So that's for sure. But why I put it like that is I remember because we are an organization which from 2008 we moved from the very local sales organization to the highly integrated, international matrix organization. So our observation was that, and perhaps you also know that we still like to talk about, hard and soft competencies, right? So it's very popular. But I think, nowadays it's no harder competence than a soft competence, because this is the differentiator that will make specialists either fly or he will stay in some routine, routine things which will be replaced by robots in some, I don't know how many years. So
in the close future.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Ačiū labai, ponia Autukaitė, už pranešimą.